The explosion came before dawn, tearing the top off the island so violently that seabirds fell dead from the sky before they could scream. Out in the Pacific, far from shipping lanes and even farther from headlines, the island had always been a mistake of geology, jagged, smoking, half alive. It rose from the ocean like a broken tooth, its black slopes scarred by ancient lava flows that still radiated heat beneath the surface. No one lived there. No one wanted to. And yet, in 1943, the United States decided this island would become one of the most important air bases of the Second World War. The men who arrived first did not come with glory or fanfare. They came with clipboards, the smell of salt and diesel clinging to their uniforms, and a quiet understanding that most of them would never be remembered. Army engineers, surveyors, demolition experts, men trained not to fight the enemy directly, but to bend the world itself into something usable. Colonel Frank Mallory stood on the deck of the transport ship as the island grew larger in the morning haze. He had seen Normandy beaches on maps, Japanese fortifications in aerial photographs, and casualty projections that made generals go pale. But nothing unsettled him like this place. The volcano at the island's center still breathed. Thin plumes of sulfur drifted upward, staining the clouds. "Build an airbase here," Washington had ordered. Mallory had read the memo 3 times. Long-range bombers needed a forward staging point. The war in the Pacific demanded it. The island sat at the perfect intersection of supply routes and strike range. Strategically flawless. Physically insane. When the landing craft hit the shore, boots sank into ash instead of sand. The ground crunched like burned bone. Every step released heat. Some men laughed nervously. Others said nothing at all. Mallory knelt, scooped up a handful of black grit, and let it slide through his fingers. "This island," he said quietly, "is going to fight us. And it would not fight fair." Within the first week, the engineers learned the island's first rule: nothing stayed still. Survey stakes vanished overnight, swallowed by shifting ash. Newly cleared ground cracked open without warning, exhaling heat and gas. Equipment overheated. The water tasted metallic. Men woke coughing, their throats raw from sulfur fumes. Captain Eli Warner, a demolition specialist from Colorado, watched steam curl out of a fissure where he had placed measuring tape just hours earlier. "You can't pave hell," he muttered. But the order stood. A runway long enough for heavy bombers. Fuel storage. Barracks. Control towers. All of it had to exist here. The solution, when it came, felt almost blasphemous. They would remove the mountain. Not reshape it. Not tunnel through it. They would blow the top clean off the volcano. Mallory knew what that meant. Thousands of tons of explosives. Precision detonations layered like surgery performed with dynamite. One mistake could wake the volcano fully, or collapse the island into the sea. Some engineers protested. Others went quiet. Warner didn't argue. He simply stared at the peak and imagined where the charges would go. At night, the men wrote letters they didn't send. By day, they drilled into living rock. The volcano groaned as if it understood what was coming. The first detonation was supposed to be small. It wasn't. The blast cracked open a lava tube no one had mapped. Fire surged upward, a brief glimpse into the island's heart. Men were thrown off their feet. Equipment rolled like toys. For one terrible second, Mallory thought they had triggered an eruption. Then the ground settled. 3 men were burned. One was buried alive before they could dig him out. No one slept that night. Warner sat alone, hands shaking, replaying calculations that were now meaningless. This wasn't demolition anymore. It was negotiation, with a thing that did not care if they lived. And yet, the work continued. Each blast peeled away layers of the island. The peak collapsed inward. Ash clouds darkened the sky. Ships offshore reported shockwaves rattling hulls. The island screamed. And slowly, impossibly, it began to change shape that by the time half the volcano was gone, the men barely recognized the island they'd landed on. A flat scar now stretched where a peak once stood. The airfield's outline was visible for the first time, raw, violent, real. Planes could land here. Bombers could refuel here. The war could pivot from this wound carved into the earth. Warner watched a bulldozer crawl across ground that had been molten months earlier. "If you're still holding on to this moment with me," he thought, almost amused by the absurdity of it all, "make sure you don't look away now. There's more ahead than behind." He exhaled and returned to work. Because the hardest part was still coming. Concrete poured over volcanic ash behaves like a lie. It looks solid until it fails. Runway sections cracked. Fuel tanks sank. Engineers worked around the clock, reinforcing foundations with steel scavenged from ships and wreckage. Men collapsed from heat exhaustion. Others broke down in quiet corners, staring at nothing. Then, one morning, a B-24 Liberator appeared on the horizon. No one had cleared the landing. The pilot came in anyway. The plane touched down. The runway held. Men cheered until their voices broke. The Japanese found the airbase weeks later. Bombs fell where the mountain once stood. Anti-aircraft guns answered. Smoke rose again, but this time, it wasn't volcanic. The airbase launched planes faster than the enemy could destroy it. What had been an island no one wanted became a fulcrum of the Pacific War. Warner watched bombers lift off at dawn, their shadows stretching across the scarred ground. They were flying because the island had been broken open. WWII war's end. Grass had begun to creep into cracks along the runway. The volcano slept. Mallory left without ceremony. Warner went home with damaged lungs and no medals. The island faded into classified reports and footnotes. But planes had flown farther. Missions had succeeded. Lives had been saved. The island still exists. Flattened. Silent. A mountain turned into a weapon, and then forgotten.